Hi, I'm Sid Dobrin. In this video, I'm going to talk about teaching Tim Wise's essay, Whites Swim in Racial Preference. I'll be talking about teaching his essay in the context of first-year writing, and I'll be addressing the essay specifically from a rhetorical situational approach. When I teach Wise's essay, I usually start by asking students some basic key questions. For whom does Wise write? What else do you know about the situation in which he participates? What is Wise's thesis? Where does he state it? How does he state it? That is, I want to encourage students to start their writing by looking at the situation and then developing a strong thesis designed for that situation. So I start by asking them to look for the same kinds of things in Wise's essay. In terms of content, Wise's essay is likely to spark some interesting debate in classroom discussions. It certainly does when I teach it. So when I do teach it, I use the essay as an opportunity to talk with students about how our arguments and our responses to others' arguments can certainly trigger our emotional responses. And that's a good thing. But that we also want to look at Wise's essay in terms of argumentative structure and its effectiveness as an argument. For an example, we could say that Wise's essay is an example of writing to respond, since it was written in response to President Bush's intervention in a University of Michigan lawsuit. And we can say that it includes a substantial component of writing to inform in its objective of writing to argue. Wise provides several pieces of evidence, but unlike one would in an academic essay, he doesn't offer any reference for where he gets his information. That is, he doesn't validate his evidence. In some ways, his argument seems to rely on his ethos as confirmation of the evidence. Now, this does not in any way invalidate either his argument or his evidence, but it is a distinction I try to get students to think about. Nonetheless, Wise's evidence is pretty accurate and pretty convincing, and he uses it effectively in his argument. So I talk with students about Wise's synthesis of his evidence into his argument, asking how is it that he makes his evidence work in support of his argument. I also talk with students about Wise's method in this essay. Wise's topic and his thesis could be potentially volatile, but his method is much more informative. It is by no means devoid of emotion and pathos, but he has chosen a method that emphasizes logos over pathos. I talk with students about how this choice affects Wise's overall purpose in writing the essay. Speaking of ethos, I do think it's important for students to consider what it means for Wise, a white writer and activist, to make this argument. But rather than let this discussion become strictly about student opinion as to whether or not the argument is affected by Wise's whiteness, I encourage students to talk about the role of ethos in the argument. Wise's piece is ripe for conversation, and it addresses a subject that might prove interesting to students for classroom debate. However, the essay is also a solid example of writing to argue that falls somewhere between a truly formal or academic argument and a well-devised informal argument. So those are some of the key aspects of how I teach Tim Wise's essay, Whites Swim in Racial Preference. You'll probably have other approaches you find useful too that you might want to share as well. So how do you teach this essay? Post a response to this video, either in the comments section or as a video response, and share your thoughts on teaching this essay as well. Thanks for watching.